Here we go.
And welcome to the Richie and Rogue Unfiltered show. Now, it's been a little while, hasn't it?
It has, Rogue, yes, and we are both in different locations, but as always, you're in the studio with me. You're always with me in the studio. I carry this photo with me everywhere I go, everywhere, to remind me how beautiful you are. We are back,
That's
folks.
fine.
Yes, it's Sunday Night Live.
It is Sunday Night Live, and it's been a while. So I had quite a precarious situation last week, and I was in hospital. And whilst I was in hospital, I had a patch test, and this patch test is supposed to be just localized, right? And I'm there kind of thinking, right, I'm going to be brave. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to, I'll be all right. It started itching like immediately. And I was just like, what the actual hell is going on? The next thing, I'm in an absolute anaphylactic shock. I am literally crash team. Everybody's running around me. I'm absolutely stressed. And I'm there just going, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. So we had to cancel 2 shows, didn't we?
We did indeed, yeah, but we're back, and that's the main thing. And as long as you're well, that's the most important thing. Never mind the show, right? Your health is way more important than an episode on the Richie and Rogue Show Unfiltered. Of course it is.
Do you know stress affects your health as well, Richie?
Does it?
Yeah, it does.
What are you trying to say? I'm not stressed at all. I'm cool, man. The only thing I'm stressed about is it. The only thing I'm stressed about right now is. Listen, the only thing I'm stressed about right now, right, is Keir Starmer. He needs to go big time. I mean, I ain't being funny. This is one of the worst prime ministers in living memory. And that takes some beating after Tony Blair, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. I mean, everybody hears his voice. Everybody gets frustrated. Everybody just hears robot Dalek. And people have just had enough. I mean, there is just scandal after scandal after scandal. And look, he's got to go. He has got to go. But the problem is, who's then going to replace him? And that's part of my issue.
Yeah, well, that is the concern a lot of people have. And I'm just going to go through some of the comments just to welcome all of our viewers tonight here on YouTube and on X as well, of course. And thank you to all of our new subscribers.
And I just saw Buffon. So hi, guys. Thank you so much for your love and your support. I'm actually okay now. But yeah, I just can't get stressed. Yeah. Stress is not my friend. So I need to just be calm.
No. You look calm.
Richie?
You look wonderful. Yes, no problem.
Thank you.
Rogue, it's a pleasure. Now, we've got a very special guest on tonight, who I believe he was just live on another YouTube channel saying he doesn't even know why he came on here. But we're going to find out more in a bit.
What he said.
Well, what did he say?
What he said is, I don't even know who they are. I don't even know why I've agreed to it, but I'm going on. So when he comes on, he'll understand why he's agreed to it.
Well, look, this gentleman is a regular on Mike Graham's breakfast show at 7 a.m. on the Mike Graham show, as many of you would have seen. Was a good friend of ours as well. And we're due to be on with him, Rogue, aren't we, in May, I think. We're going down the studio together, going to an event that he's putting on the 5th, and then in the studio live on the 6th of May as well. But I just thought I would tee up, before we introduce our guest, for our viewers to understand what we're going to be talking about tonight. I think this video here encapsulates everything we're going to discuss in a moment with our guest. So just watch this, and we bring our guest straight on.
Prime Minister resorting to lies.
The Prime Minister lied. He lied to this country.
If he misled Parliament, he must resign.
It's no good him trying to blame politicians in general. There's one person at the centre of this.
Look, there are only 2 possible explanations. Either he's trashing the ministerial code, or he's claiming He was repeatedly lied to by his own advisers. Come off it.
The public have made up their mind. I think the facts speak for themselves. He then lied about what had happened. The Prime Minister lied. I genuinely think now that it's in the national interest that he goes.
The Ministerial Code says that ministers who knowingly mislead the House should resign. Why is he still here? Why is he still here?
Well, we're all asking the same bloody question, to be honest. And as many of our viewers know, this is completely unfiltered, so we can say it as it is. Why the fuck is he still the Prime Minister? What is going on? Right. So without any further ado, I'm so excited to have this gentleman on. He is a star on X. He's on the Mike Graham Show. He's been on GB News, lots of media that he covers as well. He's a very intelligent, articulate man, and I'm so glad he agreed to come on, even though he didn't know what he was letting himself in for. But I'm really pleased he said yes anyway. It is, of course, Steven Barrett, the barrister. Steven, good evening. Your mic is off. 1 second.
Oh,
there we go. There we go. Got you.
Good evening to you both. And I think from that you realise that I often don't really know what I'm doing or what's going on. So I would take no particular offence.
There is no offence taken.
Good. I'm grateful.
But we are Richie and Rogue.
You are Richie and Rogue. I spend so much time in the law, you see, that I don't really have much of a brain left. For ordinary human, interaction, but and that's because the law is so bloated and blown up. But no, it's a pleasure to be here. It's a pleasure to be invited on anything. I'm grateful anybody listens to me on anything. Always great.
Well, I think you're the first guest I've had on, well, male guest that's had longer hair than me. So in fairness, you're beating me tonight. I mean, I'm growing mine, but I love the hair, mate. It's fantastic. It really is. The only thing is, I understand how women feel when they wash their hair and have to dry it now. I can empathize a little bit. You know what I mean?
It's a lot of work. Long hair is so much work than people think. I mean, particularly because I like to run my hands through it, so it has to be washed every day. You get to the end, and Wednesdays are particularly long with me. I'm on mic at 7 a.m. Then I work a full day. Then I film with Annunziata Rees-Mogg at 8 p.m. So I don't really get up till 9 p.m. I always think that by the time it's Annunziata, my hair just looks greasy as anything because it was clean in the morning. That's all I can promise people. It was washed, but long hair is it's the same thing. You can see why armies that wanted to win battles made their soldiers cut their hair. That's the other thing you learn when you have long hair. I mean, I'm a danger to myself crossing a road right now. You know?
The wind blows and you're like, what?
Yeah.
Well, I thought we'd start the show off, Stephen. Obviously, we know what's going on over the weekend. All the papers are running with this kind of story as well. You know, from the Daily Express saying Time PM took responsibility for his errors. The Mail, Starmer's not fit to run the country. Even The Guardian reporting that Starmer warned he faces Judgment Day next week. The weekend said sacked Foreign Office boss will fight back against. That's Ollie Robbins. Those don't know. Starmer in public showdown. And one final headline here in the Daily Mail. Starmer's two top aides knew about Mandy weeks ago. Stephen, you've been very vocal, haven't you, this week? Well, today, I mean, I think you've just been living on X today, posting resign, haven't you?
Basically, I've got a new position. So there was a Roman senator called Cato the Elder, and he wanted Rome to destroy something called Carthage, who was a great enemy of Rome. And every time he spoke in the Senate, he just said, Carthago delenda est, which is Carthage must be destroyed. So I'm thinking that every time I post on Twitter, on X, I'll go on the media, I'm just going to say, Starmer must go. It is that simple. There is nothing else. Yeah. There is no more wiggle room. There is no more lying. There is no more pretense about the process was followed. It's just rubbish. Go. Just go. He has no legitimacy at all. He cannot govern our country. And so your listeners and viewers know, we are constitutionally a bit odd in that he's not the head of state. He's only the head of government. He advises our head of state, who is, of course, the king. And it's very, very important that the man or woman who advises the king is a fit and proper person. And one of the things I came up with thinking about the Constitution today is that the House of Lords can actually advise the king that he's not a fit and proper person. but because he's not a fit and proper, and we all know this. Nobody thinks that he is a fit and proper person to advise the king. No one thinks that. You know, even the complete sort of 12-year-old melt that they put on the it was awful watching this guy with no brain talk to Camilla Tominey, who's one of our cleverest journalists. She just ripped him apart this morning. I don't know if you're listening to seen this, but he's just a sacrificial lamb at this point to sort of vaguely protect Starmer, but Starmer must go. Carthago delenda est.
Say it loud, say it proud, literally. But the thing is, who is going to be leader next? If he goes, who's next?
Well, the most important thing is to say that Starmer going will not cause a general election. And I see this a lot, and I see people get very confused about this. But honestly, in our constitution, it's designed to prevent general elections. We don't have a general election every 12 seconds just because somebody's changed their hair or, you know, had a whatever. As long as the king, and it's a question for the king, but as long as the king thinks that somebody can command a majority in the House of Commons, then there will be no general election. That's absolutely cast iron. That is our constitution. Now, any future Labour leader, given the size of the Labour majority, any future Labour leader can obviously satisfy the king that they would command a majority in the House of Commons. So the king, if Starmer asks for a general election, the king simply says, well, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to wait to see if let your party elect a new leader. And then we will see if that leader commands the majority in the House. I have every reason to believe that and we have every reason to believe that the Labour Party is not completely suicidal. It's not going to want a general election. They'd have to be insane to want a general election right now. So, of course, the Labour Party will, whatever, and it's got complicated processes and rules. It should follow those through, and then a new leader should command those MPs. Any MPs who want to leave the party can, of course, do that. And I expect we will see defections to Greens in particular over the coming days. We might see some defections by the very few decent ones they actually have to reform. But nonetheless, I suspect an incoming Labour leader will be able to command a majority of the House of Commons, at which point there is no general election. So this general election chat is a waste of time. Right. Starmer must go, and then Labour have every right to try and run the country again. They have every right to have a second bite of this cherry. You know, they won this general election. They have a majority. Okay, kids, go. You know, do what you want. I don't know I'd be interested in your chief's views on the possible successors.
Well, we did ask Keir Starmer if he'd come on the show and give a comment, and his office sent us this clip.
I know nothing. I know nothing.
No.
Nothing.
No, forget that.
No, I forget everything. I know nothing.
No, you can tell her.
So that saying it twice there. So that was from Keir Starmer's office. I think, Stephen, like you, I've never been a great fan of Keir Starmer. I think that his time in office has proven that he is incapable of running the country. Even before this scandal broke with Mandelson, quite clearly, we've had over 17 U-turns. His way of governing as a lawyer, to me, is not fit for purpose. I'm not speaking against lawyers here, because I know you are one yourself.
Barrett,
but I think that it's fair to say that the man's position is now untenable. It's very clear, even from members within his own party, maybe the backbenchers who know this, like Diane Abbott, well, obviously Lady of the House, obviously, John McDonnell, all these different Labour MPs, the Corbynites, if you like, they obviously don't have a real issue with him. So clearly, he is under massive pressure right now. And as you say, he's going to hold on to power for as long as he can. There is no way it will be political suicide for him to call a general election. His popularity rating is a minus 49% recent polling. So obviously he's not going to call an election. But I think if you look at mainstream, even mainstream media, for example, ITV Good Morning Britain this week are even coming out and saying things like this. Just watch this video and let me know your thoughts.
You know what it also, I'm afraid it taps into that very deep feeling of, you know, the people we vote for are not the people who are running the country. The people who we vote for are the front face, the shop window. But there are these unknown, unelected, highly paid, very influential, and clearly more powerful than the Prime Minister. If you can overrule a security vetting and not tell the Prime Minister, who are you? Who has given you that permission and why? And for what purpose? To what purpose to our national security is it to allow and apparently, I mean, how often does the Foreign Office allow a waving through of somebody who's failed security vetting? It just makes you feel deeply uncomfortable, Caroline, about the dysfunction. And indeed, as you belie there, this feeling that we see the tip of the iceberg. We think we've got a democracy that's open and fair. We don't. It makes you feel that way.
I think.
So, Rogue, I've given my thoughts to Stephen there on Keir Starmer. What's yours?
I mean, you know, the guy can't lie straight in bed, can he? Like, he literally is a real problem to this country. And then you go back, actually, and I wrote an ex-post earlier talking about him actually carrying the baton for the Fabians. He knows this 2030 agenda and what is happening, and he is carrying the baton to basically implement what has been already written down and stated that is going to be happening, you know, within our country. And for me, you know, I can't stand the man. You know, he lies an awful lot. He's pointing at everybody else saying, you know, they've lied, they've done this, they've done that. But he is just the epitome of that. And I can't stand him. He needs to go. He has to go. The thing is, though, you know, with the Fabians, and this kind of brings it back a little bit again now. So as the Fabians are, you know, sort of highly prevalent within Labour, you know, when and if he leaves and he goes and resigns, and then, like you said, the Labour have every right to carry on, go kids, let's go. If they're all Fabians too, are we not going to be like actually repeating what's been going on now?
Yes.
Exactly.
That is the short answer. And we have structured our country in such a way that no one can effectively govern. And that's a real problem. And everything that's happening with Starmer is in theory, I should be the happiest man in the world. So I have been public on theories about what's going on behind our country and what's happening in our country. This structure that the Fabians build called corporate socialism, which is effectively a hidden socialism, a cooperation between corporations and the socialist state. And in theory, I should be really happy because I'm being proved right time and time and time again. And we're seeing it now. It's becoming absolutely unavoidable. It's obvious. But of course, I'm not happy because I still have to live in it. And the simple fact is, Keir Starmer is you have to see him like the wunderkind of the Fabian movement. And he can't govern. So they've created a system whereby even their best, even their special child, their golden child, cannot govern. He's gonna come down. He's gonna fall. Carthago delenda est. Starmer must go. But he was always going to fall. It's exactly the same way that Rishi Sunak was always going to fall. The state has become ungovernable because as that. And I don't watch personally ITV, and maybe I'm a bit snobby about that. Maybe that's rude. Maybe I should. But I hadn't seen that. But it was interesting to see that an ITV person was talking about the fact that we have shadowy figures who actually run everything. They're not that shadowy. They're called the civil servants. And if we actually wanted to, we could name them all. But each of the departmental heads of the civil servants is now acting as they did in the USSR. Well, Stalin was alive because everybody was scared of Stalin killing them. People pretty much towed the line, and actually the USSR worked pretty well. I mean, I know that sounds weird to say, but because Stalin was such a monster and people were absolutely terrified he was going to kill them, it worked very well. And everybody should watch the film The Death of Stalin. What happens once Stalin's not there? You get what effectively happened is that every ministry in the USSR turned itself into an independent republic that governed itself, and they didn't talk to each other, they didn't help each other, they didn't do anything. They just sort of slowly sat there stealing public money, and they were ungovernable kingdoms. And then what's happened is that every single director general of any ministry in the civil service is effectively an untouchable god now, and Starmer's just a puppet, and any prime minister who comes in is going to be just a puppet unless somebody deals with the civil service. It really is. That's it. And I always say that the Fabians are like the worst conspiracy ever because it's so bloody obvious what they are. And they've created this weak bureaucratic dictatorship that doesn't work. It just doesn't, all of us, we see this in every inch of graffiti. I don't know where the two of you live, but wherever you live, I'm willing to bet money that there's an increase in graffiti, that there's an increase in low-level crime, there will be an increase in parking offences, there will be an increase in all sorts of, and all of that is rule of law breakdown. Once you have too many laws, which is where we are, we basically have too many laws, and too many of our laws are written in such a way that I think is it right to say neither of you is a lawyer?
No, absolutely not. No.
Right. Well, we have written.
I've been in front of a lawyer a few times, but I'm not a lawyer.
That's okay. But and I don't think lawyers are special people either. I don't claim special credit for being a lawyer either. I think that's very important. But laws are now written in such a way that I've been a lawyer now for 23 years, or a professional lawyer for 23 years. I find the laws difficult to read now. Right. And that's in a way that they were easier to read when I was a kid 26 years ago. They are more complex. I was reading one of the bills before Parliament. It's called the Representation of the People's Bill. And it's just written like toffee. It's deliberately unreadable. It's deliberately unreadable, even to me. So the simple fact is, in our constitution, you're non-lawyers and you are my equal. Because all voters are equal is the principle of our constitution. That's absolutely correct, and I believe that's what we sign up to. So you should be able to read this. Well, I mean, I challenge your listeners and viewers, go and read, and it's hundreds of pages of long. Of course, it bloody is. But go and read the Representation of the People's Bill and see if it makes any sense to you. Because I was banging my head on the desk as I read the bloody thing. I mean, it's just impenetrable. And then and people like Starmer they think they want this. Okay, so I'm going to be very clear about this. It's what I call the Ofcom problem. They think that they want unclear laws. They think that if the laws are unclear, they can just stand there going, oh, in this case, the law has been breached. In this case, I have not breached the law, so that case, okay. And that's where Starmer is right now. He literally thinks he can go, I have followed the process, so that is okay. It's complete nonsense. And the best example of this is Ofcom. So Ofcom have completely fat laws, or fake laws that don't work. That basically their definition of impartiality is a thing is impartial unless it isn't. Oh, right. Well, that's great, isn't it? You're nut jobs. But they've got these completely unworkable rules. And what GB News, thank goodness for GB News, did was Ofcom tried to interpret their rubbish rules that they wouldn't use against the lefty channel, but they wanted to use them against GB News. And they're like, our laws are so confusing. We can use them however we want. GB News then went to the High Court and said, Ofcom's acting illegally. And the High Court went, yep, it is. Yep. Your laws don't work. And so what you get is they think these weak, and it's particularly weak men, Rogue. And I expect you may have met some. We've never met each other, but I think in any woman's life, if she lives long enough, she may well meet some weak men.
Indeed.
That's part of the world we live in. But these very, very weak men want these fat, flabby laws because they want to be able to interpret them. They want to be able to say, oh, well, it means this sometimes. They want the law to apply to others. They don't want to apply. It's laws for thee, not for me. You know, that the heart of it, that's all this is. It's just a very, very wordy version with loads of acts of parliament. And it will collapse. Fundamentally, it will collapse. And it's collapsing now. Starmer must go. Carthago delenda est. But whoever replaces him, unless they're willing to take this, to fight this, and I don't believe anybody in the Labour. If they are, I'd be amazed. I'll support them. Because I'm a lawyer who is sort of a bit political, but I'm not really. I'm not sectarian. I don't think party membership is that important. I certainly wouldn't fight and die for a political party. You know, that's just not. I'd fight and die for a kid. That's what you fight and die for. You know, get your priorities clear. So if the Labour Party came to me and said, Stephen, will you help us fix the constitution in the country? I'd go, yeah. I don't think they're going to, but well, let's see what happens.
Oh, no. I was going to say, just for our viewers to know, Rogue, I've muted your mic until you speak because there's an echo on your end. When Stephen or I speak, there's an echo. I think we can't resolve it because we're live now, so we just have to bear with. So when you want to speak, you want to speak. Okay, so I'll bring you in now. There we go, Ro.
I just want to say that I am completely, deeply suspicious of the elites and all of their big jargon and everything just to hide their common sense. Do you feel the same?
I wouldn't even use the word elite to describe these people.
Well, what are they? What do you describe them as?
They are the people currently in power. They are the people currently pretending to run the system, but there's not a single person who is a director general of the civil service that I respect intellectually. Keir Starmer is not worthy of intellectual respect. There are almost no Labour MPs who are worthy of intellectual respect, except a man called Graham Stringer, who's often forgotten, but he's a very noble and good man. There are almost no Conservative MPs who are worthy of intellectual respect, except probably Nick Timothy and Alex Burghardt. And maybe I can name a few others on the Conservative benches, and maybe that's a pre-existing bias. There are very few Lib Dems of any intellectual worth, and then you're down into the dregs of the other parties. And what Reform did, which I do think was really clever, was poach the Conservatives' best lawyers. So I'll not talk about all of the Super 8 in Reform, and you know, I'm a member of that party, so they all have my respect. But the two to steal Rob Jenrick and Suella Braverman, when we're in effectively a legal crisis, this is a legal, this is a, you know, our country will face all sorts of crises over the next 1,000 years. This is a legal crisis at the moment. It might develop into something else, but at the moment it's a crisis of law. So to steal from the Conservative Party two of the Conservative Party's best lawyers in Suella Braverman and Robert Jenrick is an act of genius by Nigel Farage. That's just genius. It's like imagine a war and you've just stolen all of the enemy's tanks. That is just like, wow. Yeah. And I think people don't see it that way, because
speaking of the Conservative Party and Reform, I want to bring in a response that both Nigel Farage gave and Kenny Badenoch in response to the whole Starmer and Mandelson situation. I've got two clips here. I'm going to play Nigel's first from Reform. This is what he had to say about Keir Starmer.
I do not believe a word the Prime Minister says. I'm sorry, I don't, because when he was asked about this previously, he said in Parliament that under the vetting, he had been told about the ongoing relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. He then said outside of Parliament that the whole procedure had been gone through and approved. Now, both of those statements cannot be right. And I do not believe that Ollie Robbins, as one of the most senior civil servants in the country, would not have briefed the Prime Minister and briefed Number 10 about what the dangers were. So I don't believe a word the Prime Minister's saying, and they'll try and kick it into the long grass. But my view is this will further lead to electoral losses for the Labour Party on May the 7th, and I just don't think he can possibly survive, and nor do I think he should. Well, Ollie Robbins is the sacrificial lamb, and this is being done to try and save the Prime Minister. What they've promised Ollie Robbins for the future, I don't know. But no, the whole thing stinks, and I'm sorry, but Starmer's been caught. And, you know, there he was telling us 2 years ago, a new kind of politics, a different kind of politics, and frankly, it looks even worse than it did before.
The Prime Minister is putting his own interest before the national interest. For months, he has been telling the country a complete untruth. That Peter Mandelson's appointment as our ambassador was down to a failure of vetting. We now know something very simple. It wasn't the vetting process that failed. Mandelson failed the vetting. Despite it being known that his appointment would pose a risk to national security, somehow he was appointed anyway. We know that Number 10 was told that Mandelson had failed his vetting because journalists told them in September last year. Either the Prime Minister is lying, or he is so incompetent that he is unfit to run the country. This is a national disgrace. The buck stops with him, and the only decent response is to resign.
Well, there we go. So, do you think it'll be Rogue? Do you want to come in?
I just want to say, right, he's neither inept or he's lying, right? He knows what he's doing. It's all by calculation. You know, he's really clever in how he's doing it. And you know, I mean, it really annoys me because, like, Lord Harmer, I call him Lord Hermer, sorry, and him, you know, sort of hand in hand, like giving each other money and like, I'll look after you, you look after me. It's that kind of like, you know, little handshake. and now they're in it together. Now, you know, I actually used to be an advocate. So I would look after women who were having their children removed from them unjustly. So it was basically conditions, health conditions, where they were having their children removed because the medical system didn't understand this particular condition. So I was having to go forward and speak in court and actually try. So I'm not like a proper like you. I am just who I am. I'm joking. So look, you know, what you know, I had to do in the end, again, is fight for these children. And the children, like you said, you would die for, you would fight for, because these children would be taken away. So I was actually having to deal with like Andy Burnham and trying to get these children back. But it's just like the whole system is so broken, and you see how everybody looks after each other, and like the people, we've forgotten, you know, I mean, everybody's saying at the moment, Keir hates us. Now, it's not that he hates us. I don't think he's so far removed from us. He doesn't give a shit. Like, he's literally just like, I don't care. You know, I've got this agenda that I've got to carry on with. But how do we fix that if Labour is still going to be in? And that's where I'm getting stuck.
Well, we're not going to fix it if Labour is still in. So so one of the things I do is that I give honest advice on the Constitution. So I say that Labour have every opportunity now to form a new government under a new leader. That leader has every right to reshuffle their cabinet and to try their best to govern the country. If you then ask me separately, Stephen, do you think a new Labour leader will actually do that and govern the country well? I would say no. Personally, I don't think that's very likely to happen, but constitutionally, they have every right to at least try. They're going to fail because the system is completely bloated, and what you get in a bureaucracy is self-interest. So the real danger is self-interest. It's a real obnoxious thing. When the Byzantine Empire, which became synonymous with this human problem, which is too many laws and too many words and too much bureaucracy and too many rules, that we literally sometimes, many of us will call that a Byzantine problem. And the Byzantine Empire got to the point where people's self-interest meant that they were better off keeping their job, even if that meant that the capital got invaded and everybody got killed, but at least they kept their job. And so we're going to fight this. Our great enemy in the coming years, and this is where conspiracy theorists get very, very distracted. It's not lizards posing as people. It's not magic stuff. Our greatest enemy is self-interest. It's that. It's as simple as that. It's that lots of people are employed by the state. Our greatest enemy is self-interest. And should be. A lot of these people should not be employed by the state. The state is wasting money on employment. We're going to have to get rid of them. They're going to hate that. And we're going to have a massive Barney over it. But if we don't do it, the state collapses. The Byzantine Empire collapsed to external invader. We look particularly vulnerable to an external invader. Does anybody believe that if the Falklands are invaded tomorrow morning, that anybody can defend them? Does that anyone want to stick a hand up and say that we can defend the Falklands? And what if Kent's invaded tomorrow morning? Oh wait, it is being invaded. You know, it's like, so, you know, just seriously, the external threat is always there. But other human societies which have also had this problem have collapsed internally. You can internally collapse. It's not just, you don't have to wait for an external invader to come. And we are in an absolute mess. It's totally appalling. If Keir Starmer were, I don't think he is a decent human being. I personally have no respect for the man at all. I deeply, deeply dislike him. I hate how he acts, and that image is because he throws everyone under the bus to protect himself. I have no respect for him as a human being, and I would find it intensely difficult if I were in a room with him to just be in a room with him. But even if he wanted tomorrow morning to wake up and go, do you know what, I've been completely wrong and I need to govern, he's going to have the Liz Truss problem, which is that you pull on the levers and nothing happens. And since Liz Truss shown that this is true, she's actually very useful, Liz Truss, because she showed that this was true, that somebody who wants to govern, who wants to make change, cannot do that. They're not. She was then taken out, but she couldn't even. Pulling on the levers just came off at the wall. And then you get Rishi, who doesn't pull on the levers because if I pull on the lever, it's going to come off the wall. Keir, who doesn't pull on the levers because if I pull on the levers, they're going to come off at the wall. And this is just pathetic. So Keir's whilst I constitutionally would advise and will argue in favour of Labour's every right to form a second government, and there are people in Labour I like as well. I really don't like the sectarian idea that, you know, we don't like each other or we don't get on. So I really like and respect a Labour, a peer, a member of the House of Lords called Maurice Glassman. I really have so much time for Maurice Glassman. It's untrue. You know, I deeply respect the man. And he, I know, because he's spoken publicly on this, he believes Shabana Mahmood will do this. And it's like, well, okay, so if we make Shabana Mahmood Keir Starmer's successor and she pulls on the levers and they all come off at the wall, what do you think is going to happen, Maurice? Where do we go then? The next effective government, if we're going to avoid state collapse, either internally or from external threat, the only way to do it is to reform the country. The only way to do it is to make those levers, the Prime Minister and the ministers, connect to something. Literally, to rewire. I bought a house from a bunch of loons who I discovered had done the wiring themselves and done the plumbing themselves, and that led to an awful lot of leaks and flooding, and I'm told fire risks, but thank goodness we didn't have a fire. But you know, our country is in this state. It is badly wired. Okay, the law is wiring. It is the plumbing of the nation, and it is all wrong. It is all crap and it is all broken. And I'm odd in that I can say that, because if I were 20 years younger and I came on your show or I spoke publicly, I'd have to pretend it wasn't, because I'd have to pretend I understood it all, because I'd be like really young and little. And when you're young, when you're young, you worry that the problem isn't the law. The problem is that you're not clever enough to understand the law. You know, and that's a very human thing to go through, and that's perfectly fine. And if you're older than me, you're like, well, I've made so much money out of this, I don't really care at this point. And it's just like, okay, fine. But at my age, I have a small child who is going to grow up and go out into this world, and I, as a lawyer, know that all the wiring and the plumbing of our country does not work. And Keir Starmer, Carthago delenda est, Starmer must go. Yes. But his replacement will be gone, I think, within 12 months, because the wiring and the plumbing of the country don't work. That's why Rishi Sunak failed. It's what brought down Boris, really. And Liz was a specific thing, but Theresa May couldn't govern. Cameron couldn't really govern. There is no government of this country. There is no governance of this country, because the wiring doesn't work. The plumbing is broken.
Absolutely. Rogue, I think we fixed your mic situation. Have you got a earpiece in now? Can you hear me, Rogue?
I'm going to guess no.
I'm going to guess you can't hear me.
I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm delayed. So for some reason, I'm having.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Hear either of you two. So I'm having to go on Deb's phone to actually put an earpiece in to try and listen to what's going on here. I don't know what's happening tonight.
It's a nightmare.
It's
words of Del Boy.
It's an analogy for the country. This is how the country.
In the words of Del Boy, that scene where he falls through the bar and he gets up and he goes, it's a nightmare, get me out here, get me out here. It's one of those situations, isn't it? I've got a couple more videos, Stephen, I want to bring to you, because Trevor Phillips was doing the rounds, obviously had MPs, Liz Kendall, I think, defending the undefendable this morning. So I'm going to put that on now while Rogue tries to sort out her audio. There was a few videos as well, but I'm going to play one or two for our viewers to get a grip on what was happening this week, because as you know, many of you know, governments, what they do is they tend to send out an MP, and it was Liz Kendall's turn this morning to do the rounds. Darren Jones has been doing a few as well. But this is what Trevor Phillips said in a roundup of Keir Starmer's premiership in recent events around Mandelson and Starmer.
The Prime Minister claims that no one told him that his choice for ambassador to the United States had failed to get a clean bill of health from the security services. But it's not at all clear why that would have made an iota of difference to his decision. First, he chose Mandelson himself, in the teeth of opposition from his foreign secretary, from his national security advisor, and from many in his cabinet. And he then defended that decision month after month. He did so in full knowledge that his choice did business in Russia and China, had palled up with a convicted paedophile, and had stayed in the man's home while he had been in jail. It's hard to imagine what more could possibly have emerged from the vetting process that would have changed his mind. Second, he could have chosen to ask more questions about the background of his candidate for the single most important diplomatic role this country has to offer. After all, as a barrister, forensic questioning is supposed to be his core skill. I was appointed to public office 3 times by 2 different prime ministers, Tony Blair and Gordon Brown. My roles didn't carry a tenth of the importance or sensitivity of the job in Washington. But both Blair and Brown took the trouble to speak to me personally. What they weren't sure about, they asked me to explain. I suspect both probably knew more about me than my own mother. Keir Starmer, by contrast, reportedly never spoke to Mandelson ahead of the appointment, never asked him face-to-face about his links with Epstein, and by his own admission, never asked his advisors what the security services had discovered. You can lay a fair bet that Robbins will get both barrels tomorrow from the Prime Minister. But if you're the boss, blaming the hired help won't work. It never does. In 1962, the Prime Minister, Harold Macmillan, sacked 7 of his cabinet, including one of his best friends, Selwyn Lloyd, the Chancellor, in an effort to save his own political career. It was said to be the most brutal reshuffle in political history. Liberal leader Jeremy Thorpe memorably misquoted the Gospel of St. John, declaring that greater love hath no man than this, that he lay down his friends for his life. By the next general election, Macmillan's party had found itself a new leader.
There we go. I mean, incredible strong words from Trevor Phillips there. I mean, it reminds me of Dennis Skinner back in 2012 when he made that statement in Parliament. The late, I wasn't a fan of all of his political views, but he did say a lot of things that, you know, struck a note when he said, when the posh boys get in trouble, they blame the servants. And unfortunately, we have seen this with Keir Starmer, the amount of scapegoating he's done. McSweeney is conveniently, his phone goes missing, right? Director of Communications, the amount of people that he has thrown under the bus is unbelievable. And there is a real strong sentiment in the country, Stephen, I feel right now, of not just mainstream media, but, you know, which is rare because normally they don't attack the Prime Minister, do they? Let's be quite honest, the BBC and Sly News and all that. But we're seeing a change of the tide. Even The Guardian is attacking the Prime Minister, which is just the most left-wing newspaper we have, you know, apart from the Eye and everything else. So it's like, there is something happening. There's something changing in the country. And I know the Reform are polling really, really high. It has dipped a little bit the last few weeks. There have been some things that are controversial. By the way, this show you, we're not with any political party, by the way. So just for that disclosure, myself and Rogue, we're not anymore. For wrong reasons. Wrong story. Wrong story. Yeah. So, Stephen, and Trevor Phillips, he really kind of, I don't know if you've seen the interview as well he did with the MP they had on this morning, but he was very clear and very precise about the trouble that this Prime Minister is in right now. And, you know, how can he continue and save face? He's going to go to Parliament on Monday. The best thing he can do for the country is to resign, surely.
Yes, that's all he can do. Carthago delenda est, Starmer must go. That is it. There is nothing else to him. And it's been a pathetic example of trying to hide in rules, trying to hide in these fat, flabby laws, trying to find some way in which he's not to blame. It's called plausible deniability. You know, I can plausibly deny that I didn't know, but you can't plausibly deny that you didn't know that Peter Mandelson was a scumbag. Because you can't, Keir Starmer, because we all knew that Peter Mandelson is a scumbag. Okay, and he's very welcome to sue me if he wants to. I'll provide an address for service. I've got a defense of truth and a defense of reasonable comment. He you know, everybody knew who Peter was, and the bollard put him into Washington. And the bollard and Trevor Phillips got to the absolute nub of the point far quicker than a lot of people. He put him in before the vetting was even done anyway.
Yeah.
So it's just trying to focus on the process of the vetting is a total waste of time. The man appointed him without vetting. That is the abomination. You put Peter Mandelson into Washington as ambassador without vetting. And it's Peter Mandelson. And we all knew who he was. We all know he's a scumbag. The other thing he's not done it that I do want to flag up to your listeners and viewers, and I wish people would hammer him on, is that he promised, because, and this is just to bore you with the details of this, we have a system in our constitution whereby what we do is we remove the ability of members of the House of Lords to vote in the House of Lords. Okay, that's what we do. We take away their voting right. And we think that's kicking them out. But I think to most ordinary, normal people, what actually matters is whether or not they're allowed to swan around our country calling themselves a lord or not. And Peter Mandelson is still able, so by the way is Lord Ahmed, who was involved in, who was convicted of child sexual offences. Another Labour, obviously, pedo party. But they are allowed to swan around the country calling themselves lord. They're allowed to go around, oh, well, I'm a lord. And, you know, most people in our country are lovely and very respectable people. So if you walk into a shop or a restaurant, you go, I'm a lord. They're like, oh, that's fine. You know, and they will take it. We need to take that away. We don't have a power now, a legal power in our constitution to take away the right to that. And Starmer promised that he would. So Peter Mandelson is still allowed to call himself Lord Mandelson. Been kicked out the House. He doesn't have a right to vote. Fine. But most people don't really care about who votes or who doesn't vote in the House of Lords, not least of all because about 50% of the House of Lords don't bother voting ever. They're lazy scumbags themselves, to be perfectly honest. But we should take away Peter Mandelson's right to call himself a lord. It's offensive. It's wrong. And Keir Starmer promised he would create that legal power. All it would require is an act of Parliament. He controls Parliament. He's got a majority in it. Do it. He promised he would. If the bollard's going to do anything before he goes. Now, actually, I don't think he's got time now. So I'm really talking to his successor because Carthago delenda est Starmer. Go. We must take away this title. Around our country calling themselves lord. How dare they?
Absolutely. Look, can you undo me? Am I?
You're done.
Muted? Yeah.
I have to. When you're speaking, Rogue, when Steve or I speak, I'm gonna have to mute you because there's some feedback. But you're okay now.
So, I just want to know: can the monarchs still legally dissolve Parliament whenever they want, or is that they can? No.
Not whenever they want. That's the difference. So, it's the duty of the monarch to dissolve Parliament, and they do so for a variety of reasons. The most common one would be asked to do so by a prime minister. Okay, but there are other more uncommon ways in which a king or the monarch could do this. If imagine there were daily riots across the nation in every major capital, in every major city. Imagine there was a mass general strike. That would be justification for the king to say, thank you, Parliament. You do not have a grip on this. You don't have a grip on the peace of the nation. The highest duty the king has is what's called the king's peace. The king's peace is not in effect. People are not able to live under the king's peace. So because the public have made their anger so absolutely clear, I am dissolving this parliament in the hope that a future parliament, so consisted through a fair democratic election, will be able to restore the king's peace, because we must have the king's peace. That's one way it can happen. If the king came to a point where if the Labour Party fractures, so imagine there's a new leader of the Labour Party and some of the Labour MPs don't like them, and then they split, and then there's nobody able to control the confidence of the House. Well, even though nobody specifically comes to him, the king is supposed to go, oh, nobody can, I see those chaps over there, they can't get any votes through. That they're not functioning. Right, well, we best have a general election then. I'll dissolve Parliament. And that our constitution, because they lied to us. I don't know if you two know this, but I get really, really angry if people talk about the separation of powers, because we've never had the separation of powers in our constitution. Never let anybody tell you about the separation of powers. Punch them in the face if anybody starts talking about the separation of powers and boil their big fat heads. Our constitution is really about this relationship, this co-relationship, a bit like a married couple, between Parliament and the king. And it's very, very clear that Parliament is supreme. And with Oliver Cromwell, we had a civil war over this, so Parliament wins. Then we had this period in which Oliver Cromwell effectively goes, do you know what? We don't even need a king. And everyone went, once Oliver Cromwell had died, everyone went, yeah, that's a bad idea. We do need a king. And then the king who replaced him, we went through, far more important than the Civil War is the glorious revolution, is what happened to King James II I would teach that well before I taught the civil law and Charles I. I know it's dramatic because Charles I gets his head cut off, but so it is a bit more drama. But James II is much more important because James II was like, oh, well, you've admitted you need us. So actually, we're better than you. We're better than you. We're better than you. And then we're, no, you're not. And it's like, okay. So it's the co-relationship between Parliament and the King. And Parliament is absolutely superior. But we do that. But we are like almost in the opposite problem. We're almost emulating Cromwell's time, the puritanical time, where the king is, because our king is whatever, for whatever reason, he doesn't seem to understand that he has any power at all. He's almost like not there. And that is a bit of a problem, because actually there are circumstances where his mother did this, by the way. It's either Canada or Australia, and people, I hope listening, will forgive me for not quite remembering which one it was, but she used her power to dissolve their parliament when it was completely dysfunctional. You know, and if it got completely dysfunctional, it's just completely insane. You know, as it got quite close to in the Brexit years, but we managed to ruffle through that. But obviously the king can just come in and go, yeah, you people, I don't know what you are, but we're dissolving this. We're just dissolving this. We'll reconstitute you via a proper general election. You people are nuts, you know? And so the king will potentially have a role. We'll see. The public has a role. What really irritates me as a constitutionalist is when the public feel weak. We're not weak. We are the strongest we've ever been, actually, as the people in the history of our land, ever since we got the universal franchise. If you've got a vote, you are a power in our land. You are a force in our land, and you should feel that vote, that is a powerful thing that empowers you. And I'm sort of, unlike you two, I do publicly support reform, and I hope they go on to succeed. But I'm almost planning, like, if we get into general election territory, maybe I should sort of renounce party allegiance. And maybe what I would be genuinely more interested in is just encouraging people to vote. Just doing a big, you know, I don't care what party it is. I just want you to vote, because the one thing we've really let ourselves down on in the last 30 years is voting. We haven't been bothering to vote. Far too many of us have not been bothering to vote. And I don't want to go Australia. I don't want to make it a legal requirement. I don't want to make it a crime to not vote, because, you know, Sod's Law says it will happen to me. It'll be a very busy Thursday. Something will happen. I'll have a child to look after. The dog will be sick, and then I won't vote, and now I'm a criminal. It's just no. So I don't want to go down that route, but I do want to encourage people to vote. I think, I don't know. I'm literally speculating. I don't think I've said this in public.
I'm just my correspondent in my earpiece, you know, Stephen, the correspondent, one of our correspondents, is on the ground at 10 Downing Street, and he just wants to bring this report. 1 second.
There's been another fuck up.
Well, has he resigned yet? Cartago delenda est. Starmer must go.
We're chanting this. So, like, my issue is when I went out on the streets in Wales, because we're obviously Welshes and we live in Wales. So I went out on the streets and started interviewing people. And one lady actually said she would never vote because if she voted, she does not trust the voting system, as in, like, when you're polling, because she actually got hired by like a company to actually rub out and remove certain things on the actual polling cards. And I'm like, how corrupt is it? So is it a safe bet really to vote, or are we kind of pissing in the wind?
So where we are as a bureaucratic, fat, flabby state is we are careering towards a dictatorship. That's where we're going. We are on a route to a dictator. And if you believe like that lady, then you are one step closer to a dictator, because the inevitability, once you lose faith in the voting system, there's nowhere else to go. Okay, and so I have to, as somebody who I don't want a dictator. I stand in the opposition of any would-be dictator. I will never, and I'm exactly the type of person, by the way, a dictator throws out windows. So if we ever get a dictator, I'll be dead or in a gulag in 2 seconds. So, you know, I've got self-interest in this, let alone the fact that I don't want our beautiful island to have a dictator. But you cannot lose faith in the voting system. You just can't, even though it might require reform, even though I think that there are problems with postal ballots, you know, but at the end of the day, I mean, where I live, So I don't let my voice fool you. I'm still fundamentally working class. So my child is raised that daddy's friends, who are proper friends, like proper long-term mates, get the title auntie or uncle, because that's what you do. And my child has an uncle who is called Boring Uncle Chris. And that's because my child also has an uncle who is Fun Uncle Chris. So it's just to differentiate between the two uncles. Boring Uncle Chris volunteers his time to sit as one of the electoral officials in any election, counting ballots and doing that. Now, there is absolutely, and Boring Uncle Chris doesn't vote the way I vote, and we don't share political opinions, but Boring Uncle Chris has never committed a crime in his life, never would commit a crime in his life, is absolutely safe with my child and with any child, is a thoroughly decent man, and he volunteers every election we have, whether it's national or local. He gets paid for it. They're paid, but he is the type of person who sits there and counts ballots. So I have faith in Boring Uncle Chris. So I have faith in our electoral system. But yeah, if you lose, and what I would say is, I'm not criticizing that lady at all. But I would say to our political leaders, if you do anything to undermine faith in the voting system, then you are betraying this country. You're betraying democracy. You are empowering a would-be future dictator. If Keir Starmer starts pouring, I'm in reform. If Nigel did it and attacked that, you can't do this. There are things you can't do. You have to maintain faith in the voting system. And personally, and I hope I haven't massively embarrassed him, but he doesn't watch any media I do, so probably doesn't know. But, personally, because I know Boring Uncle Chris, I know that the system, and because we're Britain, and we are fundamentally still Britain, and we are, the West is going to go through rule of law collapse. I worry about certain countries. I think that I think certain countries are almost unavoidably going to become a dictatorship. Spain, I'll name. But you have to remember, Spain has only been a democracy very recently. Spain had a dictatorship until just before I was born. So for Spain, it's not going to be a massive change to go back to. And you have to remember that of human societies in all the countries around the planet, democracy is the weirdo. Most people live under a dictator, but I don't want us to do that. I think, in the immortal words of Lord Mansfield, do people know who Lord Mansfield is? He emancipated the slaves, and he made sure there were no slaves in this island. That was the first move in abolishing it internationally, which of course came later, because it's harder. But he made sure that there were no slaves on this island, and he just said, well, the air of England is too pure for a slave to breathe. So the minute anybody breathes the air of England, they're free. They're just free. That's because the air of England, the air of this island is so, and I believe it. I'm absolutely with this. The air of this island is so special that you are free. And that's why I don't ever want a dictator here. Ever. And we must treat this in a more grown-up way than we do. I think we're a bit lazy about it. I think if I'd said this stuff in public 10 years ago, they would have called me a conspiracy theorist. And I was, had mental health problems or whatever. But I think people now, thank goodness, are waking up and realizing that actually he worked all of this out quite well. And it isn't, although a dictator feels alien to us, it's very common. It's very, sadly, because I hate them, sadly, very normal in human society. Is what humans do.
Well, so we're coming to the second part of the show. I'm still dealing with Rogue's mic, so I have to unmute every time she wants to speak. So just go like that, Rogue, okay? But we normally have a funny clip on the show that our team put together, Stephen. So we're just going to show this now. It's only about half a minute long. I found this hilarious, by the way. So just watch this, guys, and we come back to the second segment. I know Rogue has got 2 stories she wants to talk about on food and education. So I'm just going to pop this funny one on, and we'll be straight back.
What's your name?
Johnny McMonigal. Is there a problem, officer?
We'll find out in a minute. Suck into this.
Suck? Do not blow?
You suck these new ones. Hurry up. Now, what did you say your name was again?
Johnny McMonigal. Hey, that's no funny. I've been trying to complain, I don't
Hold this, man. Hey.
I just found that hilarious. I don't know why. It tickled me pink. I don't know why. It's small things in life.
before we go across, I just want to actually talk about, I tried to research what the weirdest bit of constitutional law was. And one of them was, or the funniest was, it's illegal to be drunk in charge of a cow in Scotland. Is that actually the funniest one?
I don't know, and I would avoid this type of law sort of trivia just on principle, but I can wheedle out of that question very easily by simply saying that I'm not qualified. Scotland has its own legal system, so I'm only qualified. I was qualified in the legal system of England and Wales, and because of Tony Blair's activity, I might work very well. Wales is sort of slowly drifting away from the rest of us, so I might not be qualified in Wales or not competent in Wales. It's a question that many of us who care about the Constitution ask. But there are all sorts of these things, like, you know, you can shoot a man with a crossbow in Chester or something, allegedly. But you know, a lot of this stuff is nonsense. It's like, I mean, the one of the problems is that the Constitution has been kept away from people, and I hate that. I don't like that. I would teach it in schools, and I'm very clear about that. And I'm very clear that I tell people what the Constitution is, and that when I speak on the Constitution, I put away any party political bias, and I just tell the truth. I have been conscious and very aware for a number of years that because you're all pushed away from it is your Constitution, pushed away from your Constitution, that there are a number of shysters and charlatans who go around saying all sorts of things. The most obvious one are the people called the Freemen of the Land, who a Canadian judge rather charmingly completely dissected their nonsense gibberish. It's just gibbering nonsense, but it arises because of the vacuum. So the minute you are pushed away from your Constitution, if you bump into, and you're a good and decent person and you mean well, and suddenly you just become interested in your Constitution, and then you Google it and you come across somebody who acts authoritatively, then of course you're going to listen to them. And if they say things that sound vaguely plausible, okay. And then when they start getting a little bit lizard people, you might go, it sounds a bit crazy, but you know, I've trusted them for a while, and it's a massive problem. I always think I'm fighting two enemies at the same time. The prime enemy is that we have left-wing lawyers who will. Lord Reed, who's the president of our Supreme Court, likes to say or said that they misunderstand the Constitution. I think that's probably what I'll say. There are other words about what I think that they say, but they are good lawyers and capable lawyers, but they are saying things which are not true, like we have separation of powers. Just go away. But on the other side of me are these people going, oh, the lizard people run you, and if you just do this, then you can do this under the common law. And it's like, oh my God, that's like, why do I have to fight both sides? But it does seem to be my particular burden. There aren't actually many of us who are active and knowledgeable about the Constitution. So we literally all know each other. And many of us who have political differences don't always like each other, but we tend to be honest about what we say. And there's probably about a dozen people I would trust to speak knowledgeably on the Constitution. I mean, that itself is like a constitutional breakdown. There's like 70 million people in the country, and about 12 people can speak authoritatively on the Constitution. That's just mad. That is just absolutely mad. But we are where we are, I'm afraid.
Yeah. Rogue, do you want to come back on that?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask about the Magna Carta and the Bill of Rights then. Like, how has that shaped today? You know, like where can we sort of tap into that, and how does that shape it all?
Well, we do. So we do have good online resources, and I would encourage everybody to trust a very simple website called legislation.gov.uk. And if you go on legislation.gov.uk, I could do it now, but I'm not going to do it, but we could do it. It will tell you which bits of Magna Carta are enforced. It will tell you as originally written, and then it will go as enforced today. And if you do that on Magna Carta, you discover that most of Magna Carta is gone. Most of it's gone. Which is why I talk about the Bill of Rights as a far more important constitutional document. I think it's the foundational document. What's really interesting is that the seminal, just to be very boring, but the leading text on royal power in our constitution, which are called prerogative powers, was written in 1820 by a very clever lawyer called Chitty, who wrote other things, including the seminal book on contract law. But Chitty's book in 1820 refers to the Bill of Rights and the Glorious Revolution simply as the revolution. Doesn't call it the Glorious Revolution. He calls it So in 1820, people knew the Bill of Rights as our revolution. Oh, that's our revolution. France has a revolution. Others have our revolution is the Bill of Rights. And it's almost been completely forgotten. But the Bill of Rights, I always say 1688, because back in the day, that's what you did. Even though it came into force in 1689, that was what you did. And that's how you named it. And I'm an old-fashioned stickler. But if you go and Google it, even on legislation.co.uk, they probably call it the Bill of Rights 1689. I need to check that. I haven't looked for a while. But the Bill of Rights is almost completely in force still. So the Bill of Rights is far more, if we need to grope around and look for one constitutional document, I don't think we do, but if we want to, the most seminal one is definitely the Bill of Rights. That's what gives, that's what really sets everything in motion. And if you think about it, the thing Magna Carta established are pretty basic. We only needed Magna Carta because in 1066 we were invaded by complete monsters. You know, psychopathic monsters who would nick our stuff, sleep with our wives, and throw us in an oubliette if we dared to complain. I mean, these people are monsters.
It sounds great.
I encourage everybody to watch Braveheart, but just don't imagine that it's only the Scots that these dickheads were doing it to. They did it to us all. But they did it to us before they did it to Scotland. They did it to us in 1066. They do it to Wales in 1215, and they do it to Scotland whenever William Wallace is. And then they go over and do it to our own. And the Irish get very... and to an extent the Scots, but the Irish get very angry about this. Like, you treated us like scum. It's like, no, the people who had treated us like scum then went over and treated you like scum. They're called Normans, and you'll find them at this address. You know, go take up your complaint with them. And so Magna Carta was simply 200 years of finally growing a backbone and going, you're not going to treat us like this, you awful, awful people. Because they were awful, awful people. And that's what makes 1688 and the Bill of Rights is much more important, because it's much more about a developed economy. This is, you know, effectively Magna Carta is a response to the Taliban. Okay, that is practically what was going on. The Bill of Rights is more, okay, we're a successful, developed economy now. We're looking towards the future. How do we structure ourselves? It's a much more sophisticated conversation than Magna Carta, which is just basically, no, you can't throw me in prison without a trial, you head.
You can say that on this show, no problem at all, Stephen. Yeah, Rob, did it come back to that? I'm just unmuted you now.
So no, yeah, I'm just listening. I'm just taking it all in. I think it's brilliant. So we can have a look on that, and you know, again, our viewers can take a look. And you know, I know that we've got a guy on here actually called Steve, and he runs, you know, sort of like seminars where people can go and we can have a look at the Magna Carta and, you know, the Bill of Rights, and it's really important that we can sort of look at what I think he does common law as well. Does he do common law as well? I think he does. So, you know, he does like a few things, and I think there was a bit of a laugh when you said about that, and he was like, ha ha ha, yes, I do the common law. But, you know, I think it's just, you know, important that we can exercise, you know, our rights. And I think when you talk about the dictatorship, you know, we are, like you said, one step away from that. And it is really, really important that we manage that. But looking at the digital ID as well, so I'm going to just quickly tap onto that. You know, whilst we're kind of looking at, do people rise up? Is there civil unrest? You know, is there going to be a civil war? As soon as that happens, you know, digital ID is going to be implemented. And then that's their kind of way of controlling us even further. So how is the best way to kind of, I know that we can vote, but what is the next best step to stop kind of a massive like uproar where we can actually protect ourselves also?
Well, people need to stop groping around for lawyers to protect them, and to admit that if you possess the vote in this country, then you are a powerful person already. You're a person who matters already. You're an important person. Your voice and your views matter. Engage in the political system. Engage in the process. I encourage people to do it non-party based, which is part of this idea that maybe I should switch to just calling for people to vote, because it is fundamentally probably, and I don't mean any offense to the party I publicly belong to, but you know, just voting is so important. And engaging politically, lobbying your MP, forming groups, forming, you know, supportive networks, And I encourage my Substack supporters to write to the king. So we often have drives to just write to the king, because what's the king going to do? So you send one letter. Okay, you just send one letter to Buckingham Palace. Okay, fine. The private secretary deals with that. It doesn't get shown to the king, and you just get some word salad back. Fine. But you send 100 letters. Private secretary sitting there going, "There's quite a few letters. Don't normally get any. This is quite a few." You send 1,000 letters. Private secretary's like, "Right, I've got to tell the king. Okay, Your Majesty, I don't mean to trouble you, but there's 1,000 letters calling for this." And it's like, "I write 10,000 letters. Oh dear Lord." That's crisis management in the palace. And people should look upon these institutions. People should not, I don't want people to have any respect for Keir Starmer in particular. But I also don't think people should defer to number 10 or defer necessarily to the palace. I have a lot of personal respect for the institution, but don't necessarily defer to it. See them like grown-ups on Halloween who somebody's dinging on the doorbell and they've turned off the light and they're hiding behind the sofa. Okay, that is not a position of power. A lot of people wrongly say things like, "Oh, they didn't bother replying, so I mustn't be important." It's like, well, you made them hide behind the sofa and turn the light off, so I think you're quite important. There's degrees of influence you have, and I think at the moment people should just become politically engaged. I think it's really, really important. One of the great Blairite lies is lawyers will do it for you. Lawyers will protect you. I heard it I was at a conference yesterday. It's ridiculous. I'm same-sex attracted. I'm bisexual. This ridiculous idea that it's lawyers in Strasbourg who keep me safe, that stop straight people in my country burning me alive and calling me sinful. No, what keeps me safe is the straight people in my country who don't want to burn me alive and call me sinful. And if the straight people in my country change their minds, that bloody lawyer in Strasbourg's not going to come and help me, are they? What are they going to do? Are they going to be round here with a club? Are they? What? It's just absolute nonsense. Absolute tosh. This is total fiction, which has been in existence publicly since the 90s, but really it's Fabian Marxist belief that judges will keep you safe. It's not true. And one thing I would point out to all your listeners and viewers, and I think it's really important, not least of all because my fellow lawyers hate it, and they really don't. They want to pretend it's not true. It is true. When the Weimar Republic, which was Germany in the 1930s, fell, and Hitler came to power, he obviously sacked all the Jewish judges because he's a monster, but there weren't very many of them, and every single other judge just carried on receiving the paycheck. Okay, so we stop pretending that judges and lawyers are good or inherently good. That probably one of the things I'm most proud of in the media is I went on the Moral Maze and I got questioned on BBC Radio 4, and I was questioned by Ash Sarkar, and I think I floored her because the first question was, "Obviously you think that the law is moral," and I just went, no, the law's not moral. Law's not inherently moral. Hitler had a legal system, and this is what my fellow lawyers, particularly the lefty lawyers, cannot deal with this. It drives them absolutely mad. But it is true. Hitler had a legal system. It was a legal system. It was a system of laws and rules. It was evil, but it was still a system of laws and rules. Yeah. But they want to pretend that all law is always good. It's always moral. It's always fantastic. We're phenomenal. Don't you know we love human rights? La 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 la. And it's just complete tosh. Lawyers are not going to protect you. And if we go down the dictator route, as I'm thrown out the window, as I will be if we get a dictator, none of the lefty lawyers is going to be there going, "Don't throw him out the window, that's a breach of his human rights." They're not going to catch me in some big tent at the bottom going, "We protect Stephen's human rights." It's just not happening. It's not going to happen. These people are venal. They're just humans, okay? We don't even have to be rude to them. They're just humans like us. They're just scared like us. They just need to earn a living like us. They're just going to go along with it because they're going to go along with it. Most people in Nazi Germany weren't evil. They just went along with it because of that thing I called self-interest. Self-interest is a far more interesting concept, far more powerful concept, human concept, than law has ever been.
Stephen, just quickly on that, if I can push back on one or two things. Firstly, I think we've outsourced our sovereignty and a lot of our lawmaking powers in this country to foreign bodies. We've seen that with the UN, the WEF, the WHO. We talk about that a lot on this show, these big globalist agenda people and everything else. I mean, Parliament is not sovereign as it should be, because when we voted leave, as you know, Brexit, and I don't believe we got Brexit delivered fully in all of its entirety, and we're left with the bits of red tape around that still to this day. We're still part of the ECHR, which protects a lot of people that are coming here illegally and otherwise. Do you think, like, I personally, I've always stated this, that a lot of this is because of the 90s when Tony Blair was in power. He introduced so many different things into the country, and of course, jumping into bed with the EU. He's a Europhile, and we see Keir Starmer playing that only card he's got left. The only way he's going to save his ass at the next election is if he can get those who believe Brexit's been a failure. So if I rejoin the the EU through the Erasmus project, which already happened, if I get in through the back door, he likes back doors, by the way, Ukrainian boys, but we won't go there for legal reasons. I know you can't. But clearly, I mean, from the 90s, we've seen a real derogation of our laws and our sovereignty that's been eroded, really, since Blair put things into action in the 90s. So to repeal and reverse a lot of the things he did, surely the next government, whether that's a reform government or whatever government might be restore Britain, it might be, it might be Conservatives. Look, I don't know, right? But I'll be voting, even though I'm not a member of a party, because I like you, believe you should vote, but I'm not party to any, partisan to any political party. But how is the next government, how are they going to reverse and repeal all the things that Tony Blair enacted? Because surely it can't be done on the stroke of a pen, within the first week of being in power. There's a lot more to it than that legally.
Yes, there's a huge amount more to it legally, and I don't think that you can just repeal. In many ways, I think when people talk about just repealing laws, and just to be clear, because I don't want any lack of clarity ever, that just means deleting. We're not deleting our way out of this problem. As Churchill said about Dunkirk, wars are not won by evacuation. Dunkirk was a great thing, but it doesn't solve the problem. No. Okay, deleting law is not going to solve the problem. You have to both delete law, and I agree that you have to delete law, but then you have to rewrite law in a way that is accessible and understandable and readable. So that's a huge challenge. Tell me, and every political party really should be made to answer who's doing this. Where is it? Because one of the great myths that Starmer did before he was elected, particularly on the issue of planning law, I don't know if you remember this, but one of his sells during the general election was, I've got a planning bill, it's already drafted, we know what it's going to be, and so we're fine. Well, we should have asked him who's written it, what is this, and all the rest of it, and just held his feet to the fire. We should hold, and although I do belong to a political party, I think if you don't, or if you're a more savvy voter, I think you should start looking at the political parties and going, okay, this one is promising X. How's it delivering it? How is it delivering? What is your delivery? This is the point I make about Suella and Robert going to reform. One of the major problems, I think, for the Conservatives is, right, how are you doing this? What's your plan? Yeah. And I think we should demand, because the country, it doesn't require any level of technical knowledge to notice that the country is falling apart. We all experience it every day. It's obvious that the country is completely falling apart. Right. Well, a percentage of that is other things that aren't law. Okay. But about 90% of that is law. So, right. First thing, before we get to the other 10% and the other stuff, what's your law plan? What's your plans, Dan? Who are your lawyers? What are they doing? How are you going to tackle this? And it's very easy to sort of, because, there is a party that says, I think, quite frankly, ridiculous things. And it's like, even I don't know how you do that. It's like, we're going to deport millions of people and they've been here for years. I don't know how you do that. I just don't know how you do that. Okay, you tell me. So the problem is not, I don't oppose you if you want to do that, because I can be very neutral. When I put my proper law hat on, I go very politically neutral. Like, there are things, like, I don't believe in euthanasia at all, but I can analyze an euthanasia law and see whether it's going to work or not. I can see that. Now, I don't want one at all, but I can still read one and see, like the Rwanda plan. I don't know if we've talked about the Rwanda plan, but it's like whether you want one or not, I don't frankly care. But I could see that Rwanda 1 wasn't going to work, and I told them it wasn't going to work. I could see Rwanda 2 wasn't going to work, and I told them it wasn't going to work. I published on that, and Rob Jenrick, bless him, he is as good a lawyer as me. He saw it wasn't going to work, so he resigned. I was like, see, we're going to have to get to this level of sophistication. People are going to have to step up. That it's not just a politician. It's not, the question is not which politician saying the stuff do I mostly believe. The question come the next general election is which politician saying the stuff, because God, please, just vote. But if you vote for a politician who's not even trying to fix the country, then you're sort of the problem. But so there's going to be a number of politicians and political parties at least promising to fix the problem. Then ask them how. What is your plan? And hold them to the fire. Hold my own. The party I've joined as a member, hold its feet to the fire. Ask them all, what is your plan? How are you doing this? Because it is phenomenally complicated. It's beyond, because it's. I don't know if people still read Gulliver's Travels. Is it still? Because I'm like Captain America in the Marvel films. It's like all my references are so old that nobody gets them anymore. But for young people watching and listening, there's a book called Gulliver's Travels, which is really good, and you should probably go read it. Anyway, Gulliver, despite being a massive giant in this land called Lilliput, is nonetheless captured, despite the fact that because the Lilliputians are tiny and he's a massive giant, he is kept captured. He is imprisoned because they just use so many little threads, so many of their little ropes, any one of which he could break, but they use so many of these threads that he can't move. And that's where we are with law. So you really, yes, repealing is a massive, deleting is a massive part of this. Also rebuilding, because, otherwise you're just going to cause total chaos. What has happened, put in a very simple way, is that our constitution rejects what we call entrenchment. You can't really make anything permanent here. It's utterly rejected. Now, for whatever reason, Tony Blair and those around him hated that. And the European Union hated that truth. So they came up with this cunning plan to entrench us, not by one thing, but by a million of these little waves. Like the first time I read the TCA, which is the official agreement between Boris Johnson's government and the EU, what's being now reset that doesn't need to be reset because we've got everything we wanted anyway, but now we're just giving away loads of shit because apparently that's Starmer's plan. But anyway, the first time I read the TCA, because I'm aware of that, I'm hypersensitive to this, I was just like, oh, look, they're trying to preserve the ECHR again. There's stuff in the TCA about preserving the ECHR. Why? The EU is not a member of the ECHR. The EU is supposed to be by treaty, but it isn't actually a member. So the provision is written: if either party denounces the ECHR, denounce, by the way, is the way that you technically leave, but we've got another way of leaving, so don't worry, I can fix all this. But why would you even write a document saying if either party leaves the ECHR, then this happens, when only one of the parties is in it? That's obviously setting up that. It's obviously dicking over us. And this is one of them. It's just one example of the many threads they've written. I very stupidly, I tend to be a bit more cautious in what I say and what I point out, because I had an instance where they thought that they had used the Good Friday Belfast Agreement as a way to stop us leaving the ECHR. Okay, now I do think we should leave the ECHR, but if you told me to put my law hat on, I'd go, it's your decision. I have no view. Leave the ECHR or stay in it. It's up to you. And broadly, it is. I have one vote. We all, if we have a referendum on leaving the ECHR, and you all say stay in it, then that's fine. We had a vote. That's what you decided. But they thought that the Good Friday Agreement was a great way of keeping us in the ECHR forever. And I stupidly, mouthed off somewhere and pointed out that the Good Friday Agreement had never been law. It's never been law. It's a diplomatic agreement. It's lodged with the UN, but it's just a sort of let's all get along agreement. It's diplomacy. It's not law. And then in the Windsor Framework, which has got nothing really to do the Good Friday Agreement at all. In the Windsor Framework, so everybody knows, the Good Friday Agreement was signed in like 1997, 1998, end of the Troubles. So it's old, okay? So it's like me, it's old. This is an old piece of paper. And yet in the Windsor Framework, which is new, which was whenever it was 2024 or whenever Rishi decided this mad plan, for the first time ever, the Good Friday Agreement becomes law. And I just sat back and went, oh, that's because I mouthed off that it's not really law. I felt guilty. I felt personally guilty. It's like, oh shit, I told them.
Yeah, get your mouth shut.
Now, don't worry, I can still fix all this. But this is when I get very angry at political parties or political leaders who just say stuff. Blah, 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 blah. It's like, what is your actual plan? Tell me who's going to do this. How are you going to do it? And I get and I appreciate that probably my interest in the level of detail is beyond most ordinary. I'm a nerd. That's the politest way.
Love it.
But it's going to require this because, like Gulliver in Lilliput, we are a powerful titan of a country, a staggering giant of a country that is laid low and is imprisoned by tens of thousands of these little laws, any one of which we could break ourselves, but collectively is imprisoning us. It's like Frodo when he's spun up in a web by Shelob, the giant spider. It's the same thing. Any one spider's web we can break, but if you're spun up in enough of them, and that's what Blair has been doing. This is what the Fabians have been doing, I don't like them. They when I was first brave enough to mention that they existed, because of course the first time you say that they're going to go, Stephen's a bit mad, so you have to wait for years and years and years before you actually say what is true. But the first time I said it, two of them publicly on Twitter tried to go, oh well, I didn't realize we were a conspiracy. I just thought we were getting together to have coffee. And it's like, you obviously didn't, because you can have coffee anywhere. So no, and what was very nice for me was I got approached by a very good-looking young lady who said, I'm so grateful you speak out about the Fabians. I joined them because I thought that they were intellectuals, but I realized very quickly that they just tell you what to think. You don't actually get to say. And it's like, yeah, I know. It's like it's a cult.
Yeah.
The Fabians, crappiest conspiracy ever. It's like, don't even have the decency to be secret lizards. They're just weak men.
I think critical thinking is something of the past that needs to be revisited in this country, doesn't it? Because we're living in an era now. Rogue sent me a video earlier of complete indoctrination, aren't we? We don't get to look at two sides of an argument, come up with some theories ourselves, or be critical and think critically about those sides of the argument. No, it's just, this is what you should believe and this is why you should believe it. It's almost like an indoctrination, Rogue, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Are you going to put the video on with the schooling?
I was exactly. You see what I did then? See what I did then?
I'm going to tell you what school actually does to children. It's not education, it's indoctrination. You take a kid who's naturally curious, creative, full of questions, and you put them in a system that punishes uniqueness and rewards obedience. Sit still, don't question. Memorize this. Regurgitate it on a test. Do what you're told. For 12 years, they train you to be a compliant worker. Someone who follows orders without thinking. And if a kid doesn't fit the mold, they medicate them. ADHD, anxiety, depression, give them pills until they're manageable. The system doesn't want thinkers, it wants workers. People who show up on time, do what they're told, and never ask why. And here's the brutal part. By the time you graduate, your creativity is dead. Your curiosity is gone. You've been molded into exactly what they need. An obedient adult who never questions authority. And anybody who understands social engineering knows the best time to break someone's spirit is when they're young. You're not failing school. School is failing you on purpose. We may not see each other again, so make sure to follow this page.
There we go.
Actually, and I just want to talk about Steiner schools. I think Steiner schools are phenomenal because they just allow a child to be able to be themselves, and they actually explore who they are, and it's all exploratory. You know, they can sort of nurture what is like really important to them and what they excel in. Whereas you've got your normal schools, which is just pure indoctrination, and you know, you have to do this in RE, you have to do that, you know, in English, and you have to do this in maths, and it just becomes this kind of like, you understand the bell at this time, you know, you're on a timetable and you have to adhere to that. And you know, I just think that there needs to be, or here in Wales, we have the age of 3, they're teaching the children to masturbate. They're teaching the children to touch themselves at the age of 3.
That is sexual abuse. That should be criminal.
Isn't it just? And this is what we've been fighting. And we've been fighting this since we had a group of women who actually went to court, and the judge basically said, no, it's fine. And this is part of the indoctrination here in Wales. And it is so repulsive, you know, and you know, I can't stand it. You just sit and watch it, and you just understand that nobody's on our side here in Wales, and we are fighting, you know, we are fighting a big fight, but we can't protect them when you've got the judges against us. You know, we are trying to say, actually, no, I'm taking my children out. So my children are actually homeschooled because I did not want to put them into that, because actually, you know, then that's my role as a mother to talk to them about sexual education, you know, later on when I believe that they're ready.
Yes, later on.
It's individual, isn't it? So my one son was like really kind of aware at the age of, let's just say 8, and I had another child who was a little bit you know, sort of prolonged because he wasn't maturing enough, because he was loving being a child, and so it's, you have to look at the individuality of the personality and say, actually, at this point, this person ready, but this is a collective in the schools here, and it's horrendous.
So I do personally, and I'm not representing any political party when I say this. Oh, can you?
I can hear you fine, Stephen. Yeah, I think it's Rose.
I'm going to come out and come back in 2 secs.
Right, okay.
This is ridiculous.
Go ahead, Stephen.
But I'm not a massive fan of devolution, and I'll tell you for why. I think, and that doesn't mean that I think that the Parliament has to be in Westminster or in England. And if you put it in Northern Ireland or in Cardiff, I'd be happy. You know, I don't mind where the Parliament sits. But having one Parliament means that you can have effective media scrutiny of everything that goes on. The effect, from my point of view as an English person who lives in England and who is politically active, so I look towards Westminster, my effect is that effectively I have no idea what is happening behind me in Wales. I have no idea what is happening in Scotland. Scotland got our attention a bit because it had its stupid gender recognition proposal. Wales, thank good, as far as I'm concerned, hasn't got our attention since they closed the Tesco toy shop aisle. That was the last thing I heard about Wales, you know. But that's constitutionally, and poor old Northern Ireland, haven't got the slightest clue what's going on there, you know, other than the fact that I deeply respect Baroness Hoey, so she flags up Northern Ireland issues. She's a hell of a brain, that lady. But the net effect of devolution is that most of us just therefore don't know what's going on, and that's very, very dangerous when it comes to corruption. And as we are discovering in Scotland, and as I fear we will discover in Wales, what happens when there's not enough people to pay attention and there's not enough effective media scrutiny? I mean, Scotland's got, I think, 2 or 3 nominal newspapers. I don't know how many Wales has got. I know of Wales Online, oddly, but I don't know of any.
Yeah, just to let you know, Wales Online have blocked me, officially blocked me. Yeah. I'm
great. That's
far
great.
right,
That's great for scrutiny. Yeah. That's absolutely great. Absolutely great. So, you know, but all the national press doesn't really pay. The net result is that they don't pay any attention to you. And I don't mean that to be offensive. I was literally a councillor in Buckinghamshire. Nobody paid attention to Buckinghamshire Council either. It's just what happens. Everybody pays attention to London because that's where the drama's happening. And whilst nobody paying attention to Buckinghamshire is relatively not a massive problem, although I do think that there are English counties and English regions where there will be corruption, and that is a big problem. I actually don't think it's true in Buckinghamshire. We're relatively lucky. With something as big, it's sort of too big to not pay attention to, something like the Senate and Wales and Scotland and its regional assembly. I don't like to use the word parliament because I'm such a Puritan on the constitution that there can only be one parliament. There is It's like we're the Scottish Parliament, right? Okay, well, which one can abolish the other? Can you abolish Westminster? No. Westminster abolish you? Yes. Okay, right. Yeah, you're not a Parliament then, are you? Sit down and shut up. But the lack of scrutiny really concerns me. And I think, and I'd like to, because I didn't actually realise you were both Welsh, but I feel very emotional about Wales because I qualified as a barrister in the jurisdiction of England and Wales. So before devolution effectively cut you off from us. And I feel as though like we're losing Wales, like it's going away. And it's like, well, where's it going? Is it going to be better on its own? Is it okay on its own? And to full credit, I'm a Twitter mutual of Liz Saville Roberts, who runs Plaid Cymru in Westminster. So I don't fall out with the Welsh nationalists. I try not to fall out with anybody, you know, and I don't. But I do. I feel like I feel much as an English person, and I'm unavoidably English. I find myself feeling more slightly. Maybe this is rude to the Scots, but I do feel more emotionally connected to the Welsh. So I worry about what's going on with you. And my big one would be just with all this devolution stuff. I think it's just a good way to steal public money. That looks to me like a great heist. You know, you don't go after the bank everyone's looking at. You go after the bank nobody's paying attention to because it'll have crapper security. No, you know, it's just inevitable. And you are a big bank of public money. And I would be very surprised to discover that there is absolutely zero.
I have kind of a saying, Stephen, that's simple. Why have 4 shit parliaments when you can just have one?
Yeah, well, exactly. What's wrong with that? And maybe, you know, if people want to feel included, maybe we should make it move around a bit. I mean, for goodness sake, just so you know, I mean, there's one major tower to parliaments, and every time I see it on the telly, I think it's listing. I think it's lean, not a lot, but I think it's lean. And we all know that the Palace of Westminster is not in a good state. You just talk to anybody in it, they're like, it's falling apart. And they've got this modern extension called Portcullis House. And even in Portcullis House, all the cupboard doors are falling off the hinges. The ceilings falling in. They've had to put nets up. So we could just move them around the bloody country while we get send them up to Edinburgh, send them up to Glasgow, send them to Cardiff, send them to Swansea, you know, send them to Belfast. By all means, send them to Birmingham. The Brummies are lovely, you know, but that's fine. But I think personally, I prefer the one parliament system. I just think at least that allows us proper scrutiny of something, because otherwise you've got to treat corruption in particular I was brought up in the countryside. So in the countryside, you learn from a very early age that you don't put rice or pasta or breakfast cereal in a downstairs, in a bottom cupboard. Okay. You put them in the upper cupboards. If you put them in the bottom cupboard, you'll get mice. That's it. And my dad, who is my adopted dad, who's a townie, he moved to the countryside. And one of the first things I did when he bought this cottage, didn't tell me anything about what he's getting. He got a thatched cottage. So it's just like, oh my God, you already have mice. If you have a thatched cottage, you already have mice.
Absolutely.
There's no way you don't have mice already. And I went out and immediately in his kitchen, he put all the rice and the pasta. I was just like, no, we are moving all of this out and we are putting it up. No, don't you know how to live in the countryside? And of course he didn't. No, I was a bit of a controlling child there, but it's just basic stuff. Public money will be stolen if you don't look after public money. All money will be stolen if you don't look after it. But private money tends to have somebody who owns it, who goes, stop nicking my money. You know, that's why private money is a little bit better defended, whereas public money doesn't have anybody who sort of is in charge of going, stop nicking my money. So you inevitably end up with corruption of public money. And I really worry about the Senedd and the structure. I think I didn't actually ever intend to talk about devolution, but particularly in Wales, because the great history is Powys and Gwynedd, you know, the two. It was the dickhead Normans who I didn't like and who oppressed me first, who then came and oppressed you guys. And
we know.
told you that you'd be one thing.
I've been saying this for years. The whole United Kingdom belonged to the Welsh, right? Until you lot invaded us. I've been saying it for years.
True. Until because I'm Anglo-Saxon, so until my people came over on small boats and were a bit stabby and a bit rapey, you were the Romano British. You had the whole thing.
We were indeed.
Yeah, from Hadrian's Wall all the way. Yeah, so we came over and we were a bit. I'm afraid we were a bit stabby and a bit rapey. But the Normans then came and were even worse to us.
Yeah.
You know, and I do, and we joke about this, and because I think humor is the best way to approach history. Because if you want, and it's that thing in life that if you meet somebody and you want to find a reason to not like them, you can find a reason to not like them. If you meet somebody, the same person, and you want to find a reason, something to get on about, you'll find something to get on about. History's very like that. And at the moment, a lot of people are just grievance miners. They go about history going, oh, you did this to us. It was really nasty. I mean, even I, to an extent, was doing that with the Normans, but I don't hold any animosity towards modern Normans. You know,
I want reparations. I want reparations for the Welsh.
Exactly. Yeah. From the oubliettes my ancestors were thrown into. I mean, just you can't grievance mine history, but I think we should approach it in a much more comedic and entertaining way, and just be joyous about history. But yeah, I'm not happy with devolution. I'm not convinced devolution works. And I'll raise a very specific example that came to me in COVID. So during COVID, I had a power cut. And I called the centralized office, and it just so happened that it was down in Swansea, no doubt for money saving reasons. So I talked to a lovely Welsh man. I was like, I've got my tiny little child, because my child was a lot younger then. I'm really worried about it. You're going to have power, going to have power. And he was an absolutely lovely man to me about restoring power. We talked to each other multiple times, probably for about 2 hours collectively, but over about a 12-hour period. And he just said, well, I'm like, well, I'm a separated dad. And he was like, well, I'm a separated dad. I was like, oh, how are you finding this COVID stuff? And he said, well, it's absolutely terrible. My child was with the mother, so my child can't see me. And I was just like, what? Now, I'm mildly known, or just God occasionally grants me influence in the world. So I helped get my MP elected. So I'm close to my MP. My MP is a minister. And I had already told my MP that the most important thing was that my child could move between their two homes. Yeah. Now, I'm not claiming magical powers or that it was only because of me, although my MP did go on ITV and brag that it was because of a single dad he knew, which was me.
Oh, there you go.
The English rules allowed a child to move between both households. I actually genuinely like Boris, and Boris, as we know, has got enough kids, so I think Boris probably would have come to this conclusion on his own. So again, I don't need to claim magical powers. Boris would have prioritized children moving between their homes, but the Welsh Assembly did not prioritize children moving between their homes. No, and that I found that. This is a man who is helping me out, who's protecting my child, and he's like, I haven't seen my child for 6 months. I'm just like, I'd be dead.
Horrendous.
I'd be dead. I just couldn't have dealt with this. This is so when we, and this is the reality when we talk about the Welsh legal system as it is now, a legal system on its own, drifting away from the English legal system by just gradual little differences. I don't believe the lives of people in Wales are benefiting from any of these differences. I don't think it's making your lives better. So that was a really lovely guy who, if he ever watches this, he was working for Southern Electric in whatever, I think it was Swansea, but it was a Welsh town or city that the call center was in, and he broke my heart. You know, that was because if I had gone through COVID and my child could not have travelled, I just don't think, because there's nothing more important than your children. Now, the one thing, I didn't realize this was a 2-hour thing, so you'll forgive me, because
we're okay, Steve, we're fine. I think everybody was enjoying this, actually. I certainly am. I don't know, Rogue has got lots more questions, I know, probably.
No, I mean, if you need to go, do you need to go?
I need a comfort break. That's what I
Right, okay. Just quickly, we can do that on the devolution.
That's what I call it in court. I'd stand up to my lord.
What we'll do is,
we'll carry on.
we'll play another video. In fact, I got another funny here. In fact, it might give you time for a comfort break. I'm just going to go back to Keir Starmer when he was asked about if he knew about Peter Mandelson. Here we go.
I know nothing. What? I know nothing. No. Nothing. No, forget that. No, I forget everything. I know nothing. No, you can tell her.
There we go. Rogue, you've gone as well now. It's just me then.
I haven't.
Oh, go on. Well, welcome back, folks. There she is. She's turned back in the back. There she is. There she is. The flower, the beautiful, the wonderful Rogue. I find Steve fascinating. I mean, I could listen to him for hours. I mean, lots of lovely comments coming in here.
And I've got loads of things that I want to ask, but do you know what I mean? It's like we've got to make sure that everybody else hears it, and actually I want their questions as well. So anybody that's listening and wants to know more, then please put your questions up and we'll pose those questions, because
Yeah,
it's
the
really
chat.
what you guys want to hear.
Yeah, the chat, they just chat amongst themselves, but obviously when they come up on the side here, because I can't see, you know, I'm blind as a bat, right? I don't put my glasses on, I can't see. I'm like this, like this. Whoa, what's going on here? But yeah, lots of people saying they're enjoying it. Very interesting chat, brilliant guest. Could someone saying here, could listen to Steve 24/7.
Absolutely, he's brilliant. And do you know what? I swear he's ADHD. He's just really happy. In fact, I want to talk to him about, you know, like in the schools as well. This light's really starting to hurt my eyes now, actually.
Well, we've got about 7 minutes left, something like that, because of the time. Well, he's gone for a comfort break. Should we tell folks about what's happening in Cardiff on Saturday week
Yeah,
today?
you do that. Put it on to you for 2 seconds.
Okay, one second. Bear with me, folks. So we got this coming up on the 25th, which is on Saturday, where myself and Rogue will be hosting this event with the Together Declaration Association, and we will be emceeing the whole day. We've got a list of guest speakers coming on, which we're really excited about, and you get to know more about those speakers in due course. We're going to have music there as well. It starts at 2 p.m, so we're asking people to gather from 1:30 p.m, and hopefully we'll have a really good turnout, calling on the government as we go into the local elections on the 7th of May to scrap digital ID. So please, if you can make it, share it, or get as many people there as you can. If you're in the Cardiff area, please come and support it. If anyone in Wales, actually, come and support us on the day. And I believe Rogue is going to be there dressed in a warrior outfit as well, Rogue. Is that right?
Am I?
That's rumor has it.
I will wear it. No, I have got a nice little outfit, actually. So yeah, I'll be wearing a nice outfit. It's not quite warrior, but it's ready to stand and speak up outside the Senate and say no.
Yeah, I'm going to be like Russell Brand now tonight. Look, I'm going to do a Russell Brand impression. You know, he gets his chest on, when he does his YouTube channel. But he's better looking than me, so I can't do a Russell Brand. But he's in deep water and trouble as well, isn't he? Anyway, Rogue, what else is happening this week? Well, I'm always in trouble. I'm always in trouble. Used to. What else is going on this weekend? I'm trying to think. So we got that happening on the 25th of April. We're back there next week on Wednesday, Tuesday night, Wednesday. And we've got another guest, Larry. What's his surname? Nikki will remind me in the comments. We got
Nikki
Larry
will tell you, because Nikki always tells you. She's like our good egg.
She's awesome. She's incredible. Yeah, so she's going to tell us. I'm trying to pull the comments up now on my side here because I can't see a blooming thing. We got him coming on from the United States of America. He is the nominee governor for New York City. So that should be very, very interesting. We're really looking forward to that. Larry Sharp, thank you, Nikki. Saved my bacon again. Thank you so much. Larry Sharp, that's correct. So we got that coming up. Anything else, Rogue?
That's all I know, actually, at the moment. Oh, then we are going to be doing Mike Graham as well.
Yeah, so we're down there on the
I wonder if Stephen will be going to the event.
He's good. I think I seen him post on an X earlier that he's going to be at the event, so that he's on the guest list as well. So that'd be great.
That'd be good.
Bring him back in now. After he's had his comfort break, there he is. Let him take his seat, and then we'll get back to him and we'll finish off the show in a few minutes. Stephen,
can we just play my guy with the food? How was that comfort break? All good?
I am comforted, my lord, and both dogs got an ice cube, which is what they love.
Oh, beautiful.
That's awesome.
All right, I want to show you this clip, Stephen. This is the last clip we're going to show now. And just to say, Rogue was just mentioning there, we're going to be down on the 5th for the Mike Graham special with friends and stuff. I gather you're attending that, and you?
So it's the 6th, isn't it, at the Apollo?
I think it's either the 5th or the 6th, because we're in studio with him on one of those dates, and then we're attending the event we're on the guest list, so I can't remember the dates. I mean, I'm
sure that anyway. I think it's on stage at the O2 in Hammersmith on the 6th. I'm sure of that because he told me I'm opening the show.
Brilliant.
Well
Fantastic.
done. Okay.
But we'll get to meet you in person as well. So just going to play this final clip then.
Fuck you, Nestle. In fact, fuck you twice. Fuck Kellogg's. Fuck Walkers. Fuck Cadbury's. In fact, fuck them twice. Fuck Pringles and Doritos. Fuck you, Denon. This is shit, and you know it. Fuck you, Silver Spoon. Tate and Lyle. You're one of the worst because you've been poisoning people with sugar for years. Fuck you. Fuck you, Mars. Fuck you, McVitie's. Fuck you, Mr. Kipling, with your exceedingly good fucking poison. Fuck KFC. Fuck Burger King. Fuck McDonald's.
Rogue,
He really meant that,
you
didn't
wanted me
he?
to play it, so go ahead.
Well, no, because I'm just like thinking about like the food and like the laws, and I became a vegetarian because I understood that there were like a few laws which actually said in regards to if like an animal or meat had cancer, you just gouge it out basically, and you can actually that a rat is allowed to run across it twice or something, and there's certain like laws which I was just horrified by, and I was just like, oh my god, I cannot eat meat anymore. It's just disgusting. But I'm just like looking at like the food, the schooling. So for me, what's really, really important is what we eat. So we've got the NHS, which is in Wales on its knees. And when I'm talking about third world, I mean, I have never felt so impassioned about seeing people like literally lying on the floor, elderly people lying on the floor in the hospitals and being sick in the corridors. And you have the nurses shouting at them. You've got all bank nurses that people can't really understand. And I'm not saying that rudely. I'm just being honest. You know, you can't understand what people are saying, and they have no care because they're bank and they just want, you know, their extra money. And you literally have this situation where we in Wales are on our knees. And I was rushed to hospital, and it was probably one of the most horrific. They thought I'd had a stroke on my spine, and I was rushed in, and it was the worst case I've ever had to endure. And I actually teach here for medical students. So I'd gone in and I was put in a corridor for a little while, and then I was put in a cupboard. And I'm not joking when I say that. I was put in a cupboard for 12 days straight, and I had to lay in a bed that was broken, and I couldn't move, and I was in a wheelchair. And you had people walking around, just it was just horrendous. So in Wales, we have the education system, which is completely failed and failing our children. We have the NHS, which is absolutely on its knees. And then you look at the food, you know, what are they putting in food and what the government are allowing. So we've got this cyclical thing of everybody's trying to lose weight, and then, or, you know, you're just eating shit, and then you go to the NHS, which is broken, so nothing works. And I just sit here just getting so frustrated, and I just want to I just like that guy, because he's just like, just all of you just fuck off, because you're actually horrendous, you know, and you're actually poisoning our children and my children and our children, you know, collectively. We have to put them first, because they are the ones that are going to be suffering, and we need to put, you know, and implement stuff now to ensure their safety of their food, you know, their education, like spiritually. What you eat is also really important. I would say, you know, I have a really, really strong faith with God, and, you know, I really have a lovely relationship with God, and I grew up as a Christian, but I kind of evolved from what is a normal kind of structure. It became like my relationship, and it just became something that was quite powerful. And I just feel like even in schools at the moment, the children aren't being allowed to have that freedom to be. And I just think it's really important. So that's my little rant of the day, because I just want our children to be protected. And I have grandchildren. I've got 2 beautiful grandchildren, and it is so important that I am their voice. And that's really what I want to make changes. But with food, how do we make those changes?
Well, as with every major policy area, what has gone on is that there are too many laws. So I'm publicly neutral on Brexit, largely because I was a single father to a baby at the time, and I literally can't remember if I voted at all. It was very stressful, and I had other things to do. And I think that there were arguments either way, both for leave and remain. I get very angry when people pretend there weren't arguments to remain, and very angry when people pretend there weren't arguments to leave. There were cogent and rational arguments either way, and grown-ups made their own decision, and then we had the vote, and that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's how that goes. But one of the things I will say that I am pro the EU is that back in, I think, 1996, the EU brought in food labelling laws that actually made sense and were actually really good and actually made things very clear. To all credit to the EU, these were great. As things stand now, they then deleted their own laws. They have a tendency of doing this, by the way. I don't know if people know this. The EU have a tendency of bringing in laws that are actually quite good and sensible. Then lobbyists get their hooks into them, and where they had one very clear set of laws that on food labeling laws that applied to all food that to be consumed by a human. Just one very simple, and you know, I want simplistic laws that people can read, and it was perfectly. It wasn't. I'd probably go more simplistic, but you know, it was good. It functioned. People could read it. I could have got it up for you, and you'd read it, and you'd understand it. It was accessible. They now have. I revisited this area like 15 years after, and they've got specific laws on everything. Specific laws for milk, specific laws for just literally everything. Honey has its own EU laws. It's like, why the hell do we need a honey law? Honey, by the way, is one of the few human foodstuffs we really shouldn't fear, because we found it in the tombs of the pharaohs that's 4,000 years old and it's still bloody edible. So just leave honey alone, all right? Honey doesn't need everything. So one thing you can definitely leave. But all I would say, because Rogue, your position is fundamentally a political position. If you want to get it enacted, really, you need to delete all the food laws, because they are now in our laws. There was this automatic download. I really like talking in terms of computers about the law. I think I hope it helps non-lawyers understand the law. It's like we set ourselves to automatic updates from the EU, and the EU automatically updated our laws. Sometimes they had to automatically update us through Parliament, but given that Parliament just did as it was told, like a bunch of automaton robots, it was still the same process. It's still automated updating of our laws. We therefore also, at the EU, I would warn, have completely crap food labeling laws, because they're just far too many of them, and nobody knows what the hell these things are. And it took me something like 3.5 hours to even discover the honey laws and the milk laws, let alone any of the other foodstuff laws. I'm really expensive if I'm in private practice. That is just inherent inefficiency. If it takes me, who's really expensive, hours and hours to look up pretty basic stuff, then your system's broken. Okay, your system's broken. And I can say this, and so food is a great policy to be obsessed with. Keir Starmer is going to sign us up to the EU. We didn't leave the EU, we just turned off automatic updates. Absolutely, in 2020. But because we turned off automatic updates, since 2020, I don't know how much coverage this has got, because I wrote about it in The Spectator years ago, but I still didn't seem to get any coverage of this. The EU deleted all the laws to protect for BSE. Okay, older listeners and viewers don't know, might not know what BSE is. BSE is an illness in cows. It's caused by causing cows to eat other cows. I just think that's obviously stupid. I mean, the Bible warns against cannibalism, but you know, what do I know? Anyway, it turns out if you make cows eat other cows, they get really sick, and worse than that, they then cause what's called Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease, CJD, in humans who eat the cows that ate the other cows that got ill from eating the cows. And this became a massive scandal.
Yes?
Mad cow disease. It was a massive scandal in the 90s. As a result, not only Britain, but the entire of the EU brought in laws to stop it. Good, sensible. Well, after we turned off automatic updates, the EU decided to delete all these laws, and we don't need them anymore, because the EU, and particularly the French, have always had the view that mad cow disease was just because of the British, not the science and the data, and it was just somehow inherently us who did that. So the French effectively persuade the EU to just delete all the BSE protections, because those ghastly people have gone now, so we don't need these. Keir Starmer's going to sign us up to his great reset, meaning that we will turn back on automatic updates, and now we will delete the BSE laws. They will be deleted here. Another one that people, I think, it does get a lot of attention, and I was very grateful to Tom Harwood at GB News, because he paid a lot of attention to this when I was banging on about it. Partially defatted cricket powder is lawful in the EU. Now, because we turned off automatic updates, partially defatted cricket powder, but I mean, just even the words are just grotesque. I mean, what do I not want full fat cricket powder? I mean, it's like, what is this, semi-skimmed cricket powder? What is that better than full? Why am I having, anyway, the EU put partially defatted cricket powder into food. By the way, we shouldn't laugh too much, because before we turned off automatic updates, we got a load of EU laws allowing insects in food. So we've got loads of, and some of it's really gross. There are some grubs that you just don't watch those videos. There is a lot of gross stuff happening, but at least by turning off automatic updates to EU law, we avoided partially defatted cricket powder. But that too will come now. Let's turn it back on. Oh, partially defatted cricket powder. And not only that, the EU have made their law so that you don't tell consumers. Yeah. It doesn't say this product contains partially defatted cricket powder. You turn around, you have to turn the product around, you have to look at the ingredients list, and they've allowed them to put the Latin name for crickets. Do you know the Latin name for cricket? I don't.
No.
So how the hell? So we see it on an ingredients list. How the hell are we supposed to know that there's partially defatted cricket powder in this product?
Yeah, it's gross.
I mean, I can't even read half the stuff because it's too small on the side of packaging. I mean, you need binoculars just to see the bloody thing. I mean, it's ridiculous.
All, mate. I'm this close to needing glasses. I really am.
Yeah. Oh gosh, it's that age, isn't it?
Well, look, our time is up. It's 10 o'clock, Stephen. Sorry for keeping you, but thank you ever so much for coming on. It's been an absolute pleasure and a privilege, sir. You've been an absolute gentleman and very knowledgeable as well. And we hope to get you back on again soon, because you've been wonderful, Rogue.
Thank you very much. It's been a privilege. I didn't realize it was Welsh, but I just want, if your following is particularly Welsh aligned, I just want everybody to know how deeply I feel emotionally towards Wales. And I am obsessed with voices and how they sound. I was obsessed with my own. I tried very hard to get my own speaking voice to be nice. I love Geoffrey Cox. I love a guy called Zeb Soames. Zeb Soames has got the best voice ever. But I deeply respect the South Wales accent. I think it's lyrical. I think it's beautiful. I could listen to you all day. I think it's one of the greatest sounds to grace our island. So, and I don't like being pulled away from you. I'd like to be a barrister qualified in England and Wales again. I'd like us back
together. We're getting to trouble just so you can come over.
When Starmer tries to have me taken out, I'll just flee. You can all hide me down in the valleys.
Yes, we've got some tunnels.
We've got plenty of tunnels in Wales. We've got plenty of coal mines as well, coal shafts and all sorts of places, Stephen. But it's been an absolute delight having you on. You are the barrister, the best barrister. If you don't know where to find Stephen, he is on Substack. You can also follow him on X. I'm just going to pull up his handle now so you can find it, folks. Make sure you follow him there. Plenty of stuff going on there. But you'll find his timeline this week is full of Starmer resign.
Get out.
I mean, literally.
Carthago delenda est. Starmer must go.
Amen to that. Amen. Stephen, thank you ever so much, my friend. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for joining the Richie and Rogue Show Unfiltered, and we'll speak to you very, very soon.
Thank you very much. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Loved him. Absolute brilliant guest.
Absolutely.
Superb.
What a legend. Now he knows who we are. So next time, if he doesn't come on, we know why.
I know. Well, I was sending him a message and he didn't respond on X. So then I asked him for his email address. We did an email correspondence and then I managed to get through to him. But absolutely wonderful having him on. Loads of chat in the comments thanking him. Thank you, Stephen. From Nikki and the team. People saying good night all. Good night. Yes, good night. It is good night.
My head's hurting with this light.
I know, that's what I was thinking of you. I was like, her eyes are going to be burning. Her head's going to be hurting.
They are so burning.
So we are going to say we're going to love you and leave you. No star, as we say here in Wales. And don't forget the 25th of April.
Cariads.
No Star Calon. You're Cariad, I'm Calon, innit? Isn't that how it works?
I'm Cariads and you're Calon.
But
I'm saying good night to all of our Cariads here.
Oh, everyone, absolutely. Big love, big love. And we will see you all, hopefully next Saturday in Cardiff. Myself and Rogue are going to be hosting the event with a load of speakers as well. So it's going to be fantastic. We're going to have some fun as well, right? It's not going to be boring, right? So make sure you can attend that. And don't forget to follow us on all the social media platforms as well. And if you want to contact us, please go to our website, www.richieandrogue.com. Leave a message there and the team will be able to pass on that message to us so we can respond to you.
And follow us on our X accounts. And mine is @RogueUnfiltered. I'm trying to get it to 10,000.
I know you are. I know. I see now. I just thought, yeah, brilliant. Yeah, so please follow Rogue, get it to 10,000. It's a milestone. We're on 19,000 on Facebook now as well, I gather. Aren't we? Over 19,000 followers.
Doing really well.
Our subscribers are going up every single day here on YouTube as well. So thank you for that. You may have noticed that there is no monetization on this channel any longer because we're in the middle of having some conflict with the partnership program, which we're trying to sort out. Yes, YouTube, but you can go to Buy Me a Coffee on the website. If you go to YouTube, look at our links. There's a Buy Me a Coffee link there, and you can leave a donation if you want to support myself and Rogue and the channel. Other than that, there's nothing else left to say other than no star, good night.
No star, good night.